You have to click the escape button to get it to
Got it.
unlock.
Okay, wonderful.
All right. Well, thanks, folks, everybody, for coming out. This is the second edition of the Ether Engage. And yeah, really excited. We got an amazing speaker, Umar. I'm going to let him introduce himself. But I'll just get started quickly with myself. I'm Justin O'Hare. I'm the founder of Ether. We do immersive and engaging experiences, brand experiences that drive emotion for customers, and have a full data platform that ties into the back end of it there. So yeah, and we've worked with lots of great brands, everything across the board, from CPG to banks to technology companies as well. And yeah, we've been doing these Ether Engage events to educate people on opportunities and strategies to further build customer experiences and drive emotional connections with customers. So with no further ado, we got Umar here. He's a powerhouse. I'll let him go through his credentials, but I'm super happy to have him on board today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Justin. I'm so excited to be here. It was great meeting you the first time at the other conference that I spoke at, and I'm so excited to be here today. Hello, everyone. I'm really enjoying this metaverse thing on the side as well. I am Umar. I am a strategy partner at a very boutique shop called NewBrains. We started 6 months ago. Prior to that, I spent a decade at WPP, which is one of the world's largest holding companies, and I was at VML, which was a merger of Wunderman Thompson and VML YNR. I was the chief experience officer, and prior to that, I have had progressive roles at many other agencies and startups. And yeah, so I've helped clients grow their businesses using the power of marketing. And right now at NewBrains, I think our promise is very simple: is we help startups and companies building brands and driving business growth through customer experience, through CX. So yeah, excited to be here and excited about this conversation today.
Fantastic. So getting into it, first question I'm going to bring forward, and it's a broad one. What are the biggest challenges you're seeing brands are facing these days?
Yeah. Woo. Big loaded question. I think before we talk about what are the challenges, we just need to understand the context in which the brands are operating. And I'm talking inflation, I'm talking the tariffs. There's a lot of uncertainty, rising housing prices. And so that's the context, the broader context in businesses are operating. And within that, I mean, marketers have one job to do, is drive the growth agenda, drive business with bums and seats, sell more subscriptions. And when it comes to that, I think the challenges that they are facing is they have less money. They have less money to do more. There's constant, again, there's uncertainty just in the environment. There is, if you look at just, lots of studies now, like just decline in how brands are different. So the declining of brand differentiation, and especially if you talk about the CPG category, it's, the store brands are killing it. And so again, that is a big challenge. And then this sort of, we've talked about media fragmentation for a long time, and it's more media is more fragmented, finding people are not on one channel. There are so many different channels. And then of course you have this looming AI threat, which is both a threat to businesses and how marketers are doing their job. So those are some of the challenges. So they're operating in this, but the job is drive growth, get more business, and they have to do with a lot less money and they have a lot more responsibility right now.
Love it. Yeah, it's we're seeing budget shrink as new tools come out, more efficiencies are being put in place. And yeah, so budgets are shrinking with higher expectations for stronger results. And yeah, I mean, it's happening across the board. We see it every day when we're talking to our customers, talking to other brands. And yeah, really, really trying to just like understand how they can maximize those budgets and use certain strategies to come up with better results is really the biggest challenge that's happening. What sort of approach are you guys taking at NewBrains, or are you taking, or have you taken in the past to communicate to customers that and brands that like, hey, you have to understand we are working with less budgets and are trying to come up with bigger results. How do you balance that? It's a teeter-totter back and forth there.
I think for us in how I approached in the past, I think the budget conversation is important. We have to start with the fundamentals with the brand. Like, what are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to do? Do you have a good starting point? And for us, that's like, do you have a strong brand positioning? What do you stand for? And then what is the business that you're trying to drive? So it's like sell more subscriptions or get more people to drink our cola brand. And then we go from there, okay, let's then find what's the problem, what are the barriers to those challenges or to meet those objectives. And that's how then you start shaping the strategy, and then you can get realistic about it and start to have those budget conversations. So if someone's saying, making it up, but I want to, get sell 100,000 credit cards this year or 10,000 credit cards. You can do simple math and go, okay, cost per acquisition for one credit card is $100, and that's the amount of investment that is needed. And so you can do sort of rough math around based on best practices, based on data, historical data that's available, and get to a place to go, this is how much budget is required to get to that number. And that's when you can start to have a realistic, honest, and smart budget conversation. Yes, they are expected to do more and efficiencies, and that's the job. So again, how are they going between should I do this and should I do more? Like, look at data, look what's performed in the past, and go from there. Does that answer what you're saying?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of understanding what sort of like where they have to look at from a big picture perspective to really understand the value that they're going to get out of every campaign they exercise against, and that kind of nailed hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, and I think by putting agencies are, in my opinion, or consultants or small shops, we're still downstream. Like, we are not the ones really helping put together the marketing plans. Sometimes we are, most times we are not. And this goes for the biggest agencies in the world and the smallest ones as well. Like, we're like, hey, I want to do a campaign. There's a budget that's fixed to go. I have $1 million to do a campaign to drive eyeballs, to drive subscriptions, whatever that is. And then agencies help the clients figure out what they can do with that $1 million they get budget, and what are the right channels to put them in. And that's where our consultation and our help comes into play. So I think it's again, perfectly honest, on the client, they can work with agency partners to craft that, and then of course we come in and say, certain channels are more effective in doing certain kind of things. If you're looking for broad awareness, maybe TV is the right thing to do. But if you're trying to do very sort of local activation at an event or at a festival, a different channel might be more useful. So again, helping marketers have to do the heavy lifting, then work with the right partners to find the right budgets, and then use our and yours expertise to execute that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's super exciting to see, to just hear you talk about how brands can like really get a formula that will give them know where their ROI is coming from in working with their agency. Moving next on, so looking at more about brand experiences and building emotional connections with customers, it's extremely important and valuable to brands from a long-term perspective, where I'm going to plant this seed inside a customer's brain, in their subconscious. They're going to have a good feeling about my brand. So what is your view on the role of brand experiences, and then what do you think of the modern tools that are being used to execute them?
I think brand experience is a big loaded term. I think to me a brand itself is a full experience. Like everything they do is creating that experience. And within that, you could create different experiences at different stages of the journey or the path to purchase or the funnel. And it's addressing a very specific problem that they are trying to solve. So if, again, making up an example, if a bank is like, the next generation of Canadians or Gen Z think my brand is old, then I need to create a very specific brand experience to shift that perspective, shift that perception, and you could create a brand experience. So how do you get, if the brief is, how do you then get Gen Z to consider your brand for banking? That's when a brand experience comes into play. Can you do a TV ad? Sure. But if you're like, no, well, maybe Gen Z is not watching enough TV, but the best way to catch them and drive consideration for their brand is maybe tapping into some of the passion points, which could be music, which could be gaming, which could be anything. So maybe then we take gaming, but that's a Gen Z passion point, and our objective is to drive consideration for our bank and bring them together. And maybe we do a cool activation. It could be an experiential activation, a physical activation, a digital activation to create that brand experience. So taking that as an example, what are the tools? I mean, like, the metaverse could be considered a tool that you could use to engage with them, or something small as I don't know, a Snapchat filter. Just making examples up here, but you have technology at your fingertips now, and you could create anything you want. But again, it is important to really understand the behavior of the audience. Like, what are they engaging with? What are they doing? And then your response is maybe it's an AR VR thing that you create. So fundamentally, it is really about understanding that the experiences that you're creating is what stage of the journey you're creating that, what problem it's trying to solve, and then what objective it is trying to achieve. Like the world's your oyster, like we have so many tools and technologies and platforms that we've access to. Back in the day when social media was new, like, yeah, social is here. Now we're like, AI is here. So the tool set keeps on expanding, but it's how do you understand the behaviors and the brand's objectives, and then create a specific brand experience. And that's where then the broader understanding of culture and the idea of creativity comes into play as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And in our previous talk, we were meeting with Colton from Salt. He brought up how all these experiences, we have so many tools, so many different technologies, different things that we can do to integrate into these brand experiences. But it's got to be a fit. So it's got to be what the audience wants. It's going to be what is going to give them that emotional connection and give them really resonate with who the audience is. So it's an ongoing trend we're seeing now with these events. So that's great to hear. On that side, and understanding the customers and who they are and what they their goals are, where they spend their time. What is your opinion on the way brands are leveraging real-time data to plan their marketing strategies to target these audiences?
I think having access to real-time data is gold mine. Like I'm thinking about, like, you know, imagine you're a retailer and you have access to real-time data and go, this t-shirt is flying off the shelves. And something that comes to mind is, a brand like Shein. If you park their fast fashion stuff for a second, they have built a machine on having access to real-time data, watching what's trending, what's selling, and then producing just the right amount of clothing to feed that demand. So real-time data is extremely important. Uber uses real-time data to do search pricing, and they make money off of that. So there are many. Amazon does, pricing in a way that's tied to what's happening on their platform as well. So to me, real-time data is a gold mine. Imagine you are a cola brand and you've noticed and you have access to enough data that your competitor has put out an offer during summer and stuff is flying off the shelves. If you have access to that data, how do you respond instantly to that? Or something's failed, a competitor's product has failed. How do you quickly jump on to that as well? So it's being reactive, and you can be reactive in the sense of, like, I think, back in the day, in the advertising, we should call it reactivertising. So you're reacting to a trend that's happening, like, I'm probably dating myself, but the whole Oreo dunks really long time ago with the Twitter fail and whatever, that was the first ones of those things. And you see that, if you go on TikTok or whatever platform, like, brands quickly reacting to each one. So it's smart it's not smart. I think you should be using it. You should be using real-time data to do it. But how many organizations are truly set up to take advantage of that? How clean is their data? Do they have access to that data? So smart brands are doing it. Smart brands are investing in data and that architecture that's required to be responsible. Right? The Uber example is a great example. The search pricing, so have I seen, again, I gave you the example, Uber, Amazons of the world are doing it. GM is doing it. The whole fast fashion industry is really built upon this idea of real-time insights coming from it and what the factories are producing and what's trending, picking up fashion signals from across the board and really fast. So I'm a big fan of it. To the extent it gets executed, it requires big strategic thinking, companies' capabilities, and then flawless execution.
That makes a lot of sense. And Uber's a perfect example where they can find the perfect opportunity to charge their customers more because they're so busy and it's literally they're managing supply and demand with their app based on the data that they're reactive to. I love the Oreo example. There was a recent one, and it's more of like reactive to culture.
Yeah.
A recent one, it was Coors Light did the Case of the Mondays where they screwed up some font, some text, and then they released a case that said Mondays on it. And it was all about reacting to what they did, the mistake they did, and what's happening in the culturally for them. But yeah, there's definitely a gap in there where a lot of brands don't have access to the data or don't know how to use the data they have appropriately to react. And I think that's going to be a next trend over the next coming years where there's going to be tools coming out. What we're focused on Ether is a tool that kind of helps these brands engage and react to real-time data as well with their building out multiple interactive campaigns and engaging these customers. So one of the go for it.
One thing I should say is, like, I think it's also going beyond just reacting. I think that is the expectation. Like we're talking about personalization. That is in a way the platform reacts to your behavior. So if Netflix is like, it's for you, and Amazon's like, these are the right products for you, there is an expectation that technologies and systems are smart. What I think of that is like these anticipatory experiences. Like I give you my information. Tell me what to shop, how to shop, what to buy, recommend me stuff based on the data that you have. And we have this philosophy that most people are lazy, and this is not putting customers down. Like people don't want to work. Like they're like, feed me stuff. My for you page is reacting to what I'm liking, right? My feeds and everything.
Sorry, Umar, I'm not sure if you muted yourself or something. I'm not hearing your mic.
Hello?
Mason, can you hear? I got disconnected. That's the problem. Sorry, one second. I think I figured it out. Here we go.
You can hear me? I can hear you.
Hello.
Mason says he can hear me.
Okay. I can't. Oh, I hear something.
And then I see Candace saying that she can hear both of us. Okay, well, Justin is coming back, and you people are here still here, so I'll continue to.
You're test. No, still not hearing you. What's happening?
Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
While Justin is figuring it out. So, like I was saying, like
Here we go.
people are lazy, so people sort of expect things to be done for them. So the whole re-advertising, like you engaging with the platforms, your feeds, your For You page, if you're on TikTok, it is in a way reacting to it. So there is an expectation that that things and data that's being reported is kind of used to benefit me. So yes to collecting data if you provide value, and of course provide transparency, like how the data is being collected and how it's used for. But people are lazy and will give data if you give them value.
Awesome. Seconds. With that in mind, we know that brands struggle with proving ROI on engagement efforts and experiences. So, what kind of metrics do you think truly measure brand experience success?
I think again, brand experience is such a broad term, so I'm just going to try to break it down and go like,
yeah,
how whoever is doing something, how are they defining what that brand experience is? So there's if you're doing, let's part ROI for a second. I think you're just measuring the success. If you do have a key performance indicators, and I'm going to just take an example. We worked on a brief for March Madness recently, and the idea was like, Gen Z and young people are watching. It's March Madness. The brand is a sponsor of March Madness, and they want to make sure that that partnership and the experience that they create around it helps the brand. And so the KPIs was established earlier on that this partnership will help us move our consideration scores with this audience. It will also help us drive awareness that we are partnering with it, and then because we're tapping into this passion point, and hopefully it helps people try our new product as well. So this specific brand experience had its own sets of KPIs. Now, I would say let's told you, anyone who's doing it, just start there. Like create the specific set of KPIs for that. And then when we talk about return on investment, I think that's a bigger conversation around not every activity that marketers do has a direct return on investment. So if you're spending money on an activity that's trying to help build your brand, you can't simply go, well, the ROI of this is this. I think with digital channels, or back in the day when we were talking about direct, you could do a correlation between we spent X dollars and we got Y results. So going back to your question, how do you look at the ROI of these experiences? Again, go back to what were the objectives that you were trying to hit, and what were the key performance or KPIs that you set forth aligned with those objectives. If they were grant related, you have to find a different way to measure it. ROI is not the way to measure it, but it was very specific to sell X many credit card applications or get X many people register to it. Then you could do a very ROI approach to that. So I'm not giving you like a concrete answer, I'm just trying to break it down. Like, again, look at the objectives. Not everything has an ROI, not every marketing initiative. And yeah, and then that's how you prove your case on whatever you're trying to do. Go back to their marketing point. Like, how did you come up with why we need to do 5 activations across 7 universities? Just making up an example. Because the target is there, because we want to drive awareness, because we want to sell credit cards or bank applications or whatever that is. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I think I'd like to go in a bit deeper on it, in the sense, like, how do you define those like objectives and KPIs and how would you advise customers, like, hey, this is what you need to do to really drive value for your brand there?
Again, it starts with like, what is your objectives? I will start there. Like, what are we trying to achieve?
Yeah, so like the objectives, like how can you, I guess, do you have any exercises or anything to help people understand what their objectives should be? I guess is where we're going at.
I think we can do it, but I think in the context of how we do it, yeah, it's as simple as saying how many. If we're doing that exercise, I don't know. Let's take an example. Like, how many subscriptions do you want to sell this year? Oh, we want to sell 100,000 subscriptions. Okay, let's start there. 100,000. The next question I would ask: how many people know about you? Are you like a Canadian Tire? Or are you a new company? Okay, well, no one knows about you, so I don't know if we can get to 100,000 subscriptions if no one knows about you. So let's work on like solving the first problem. Let's get people to know about you this year. So this year is going to be all about that. But if you're working with Canadian Tire, well, everyone knows about you, and you want them to sell the subscriptions. Making up examples here. So it's really asking them the questions based on the objective that they have, and walking them to those specific steps to go, like, how people know about you. Again, like I talked about, if based on historical data or based on publicly available data, the cost per acquisition of a specific thing is $100. Do you have that? Do you have that? Do you have that? Do you have that money? Then also looking at the competitive space. So it becomes a bigger marketing exercise to really help them guide through that. But based on my experience and the agency experience, we are usually sometimes downstream and not solving for those things. We usually start with, we need to sell X subscriptions. This is the media dollars and the budget that we have. Help us make this activation, and then make a plan around that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think it's like, as from the service provider perspective, there's so many times I've been thrown in a situation where the brands don't have objectives. They're like, we just want to do this campaign, and they don't look at the bigger picture. Like, hey, what is the value you're going to get out of this campaign, and what are the certain metrics that we need to track to make sure that we get that value out of the campaign. And yeah, I think it's important for everyone involved, whether it's the brand, the like brand managers, the CMOs, whoever it is that's kind of overseeing the campaigns, to really establish those metrics and their goals and objectives and track along the way. And I mean, I've seen it many times with my own companies where we didn't have tracking, and then it just kind of like was a leaky bucket the whole way. And all this audience, bringing in all these users, they were doing a lot of cool stuff. They were involved with what we're doing, but they just kept falling out because we weren't tracking it.
Yeah, and I think it's important. Even I'm saying like agencies are downstream. I think it's our job and your job to help them make sense of what we are tracking and how we're tracking. Because I think that's where the education piece of partners like yourselves comes into play to go like, that's great. We are going to do something cool at Panda Square or whatever, but what's the objective it's meeting? How are we tracking it? Because at the end of the day, if you're working with a brand manager or whoever, you still need to go higher up and justify like we did something. Here's the results it drove. Those questions always come up. I've been in the industry long enough where even if your direct clients are not asking for those, their boss or their boss's bosses will eventually ask, what did we get out of this? Like, I spent all this money. I did re-advertising or whatever we did. What did we get out of it? So should be able a way to justify it, and that's where you and us and I've done that in the past, help clients both early on and even after to say this is the impact that it delivered. I think that's what separates like an agency that's just a pure play production partner who's just executing versus a agency partner who is actually showing how it impacted their growth agenda.
Yeah, that nails it. Cool. So I'd love to move on to something a little different, but aligned with what we're talking about. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you think interactive and gamified brand experiences will influence audience behavior and business growth for brands.
So gamified experiences. I think gamification itself is just a mechanism to get some sort of behavior change. So if you look at, I'm just taking an example of Duolingo as a learning app, right? They use all the gamification mechanics to get you to learn a language. So I think what it's done interesting is, and the gamification mechanics is to take a big task and break it down into smaller tasks and then get you to do those tasks through the mechanism of gamification. And so fundamentally, that's what gamification is. How are brands leveraging it? Brands can leverage it however they want. So I gave the Duolingo examples, like how do you get people to learn a language? Well, let's make an app that gamifies the learning experience. I think just in the whole learning space, if you look at lots of platforms that are doing it outside of just the Duolingo types, you want to teach people, there are lots of financial literacy apps that help people learn the basics. So gamification is just a mechanism that's being used. Facebook uses it. So if you've engaged in Facebook groups and stuff, they're like, you're the top contributor. Thank you for adding this and thank you for doing that. It's a way to constantly keep you on the platform, get you to continue to stay there and drive the objective. And what is their objective in that case is dwell time. Because they know the more time you spend on it, likely you'll spend more money. It's the same thing that the casinos would use to gamify the casino experience as well. So brands can essentially use the gamification mechanic to drive the behavior change shift that they are trying to do. So there are lots of examples. I'm just trying to explain the mechanism, and yeah, like I've created gamification experiences again in the past. One was where we were trying to teach people financial literacy and how do you then bite-size it. So you teach them something and then you give them a badge or something to go, great job, now let's move on to the next one. And then you can tie contests and campaigns and so many things to it in service of a much bigger goal.
Definitely. Yeah, it definitely seems to be a good fit to the financial services
Mhm.
area. We did a TurboTax campaign once where we had an I Spy game where the people were looking at the dorm room and they're finding tax write-offs and kind of being educated on what you can write off as doing
Yeah.
your taxes. And students loved it. They were so hooked, so deep into it, and they wanted to keep going and learning more, and it made it exciting for them. And I think that excitement is really the power of gamifying things, and games in general.
Yeah.
Um, how do you think brands can measure the value of that excitement that kind of comes out of it? What sort of ways can you come up with to track almost like that emotional connection that you're getting with the customer as they try these experiences in games? It's a good one.
I think I don't know if you can track the excitement piece necessarily. I mean, you could get some qualitative data around how people felt as part of that experience, but looking at like did that experience or did those things that we do move the needle in our perception about the brand or the attributes. So do they see X brand as more surprising? Do they see X brand as more youthful? So you could do like, I don't know, I'm just making it up, but a post survey with the attendees of a certain experience and ask them certain questions to go, how did you feel after this experience? Do you think brand X, or would you rate it as this after this experience? And if you're doing a bigger study, again, you can ask them out if the needle moved from certain attributes as well that the brand needs to stand for, which in your case you're saying is more exciting, is the brand I would choose to fill this need. So that's a way to track it. But again, it would be a bigger sort of scorecard or a measurement framework that tracks not just that, but it tracks other results as well based on the objective that was there, which drove the experiential or whatever the activation was in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, and one of the things we've noticed is like the accuracy of the data that we're getting too. So, like when we give a survey at the end of a game, after someone's had that experience, they're more willing to give more accurate data. So we're gonna, they're the other thing is like they're gonna give us the right email. We're not gonna get their burner email. They're gonna want to tell us exactly how they felt about the experience because they have that connection from an emotional standpoint to the game and the brand and everything that they've kind of been
Mhm.
engaged with. We did a campaign with Bell where we had like an 80% year over year growth on the data, and the accuracy of the data was like through the roof, and the value that was built out of it. Um, and
And
yeah, go for it.
it's important. What you're saying is that's the important piece is set up that infrastructure of tracking data. How clean is it? How is it being collected? How's it being, just managed, and how's it being reported, and is it tied to the objective? So absolutely, I think that's a great example that you gave. Like, ask those questions beforehand. Do the setups of the everything beforehand, not after. And I think those brands who are really good at that game are winning. Again, I go back to the Amazon and Uber and Shein examples. Like, data is a big part of them as organizations, right? Like the reporting of it and then all of it. So yes to everything that you just said.
Awesome. Um, so as we like kind of like thinking about consumers, how much attention span we're getting, and like how we can really engage them with games, what is your how are brands kind of do you think how do you think brands can cut through the noise of everything that's happening? TikTok, you're getting 15 seconds at most of someone's attention per video, and there's so much out content out there. What can we brands do to cut through the noise to seek people out and get grab their attention?
So there's a quote that and a statistic everyone uses, like we have attention span of a goldfish or something like that, like a shorter than a goldfish. And I don't ascribe to that. I think people are talking like, well, people are watching TikTok and they don't have a ton of attention spans. People are also binge watching TV shows. You know what I'm saying? So it's not about the attention span piece. Is it, are you providing value in this case? Which words gets thrown around. So you can stand out even in this media fragmentation, in the TikToks of the world, like people are on so many different channels. And how do you do that? I think it goes back to like, do you have a solid brand and a point of view in the category that you exist in? Like let's take Duolingo as an example. They're on TikTok, like the most brand that's talked about within that space. They've taken it seriously. They know who they are. There's a business objective behind it. They're owning it. And what brand needs to be successful is find your unique voice that's tied to your brand positioning, and that comes through everything that you're doing, and then make it interesting. Like, people are lazy. People want interesting stuff. People want to be entertained on all these platforms. People want gamified experiences, even if I'm learning about literacy or financial education. So how do they stand out? Like, that unique POV, creativity, cultural resonance, all of that needs to come into place. I'll give an example of a brand that I really like. It's a luxury brand called Loewe, right? It's a great brand. It got revived like 10 years ago with a great creative director. And luxury brands do a really good job cutting through the clutter because they own who they are, and then they add the layer of creativity. So they're constant in who they are, but they are constantly disrupting in how they show up creatively. And that's how you win. That's how you win now, and that's how you won 20 years ago. Like, regardless of how many channels come into play, if you own who you are, you have a distinct POV, you have your own niche, you can win, you can succeed, you can achieve all the business objectives that you set out to achieve.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely having things aligned with what your brand is and who your customers are, making sure your brand aligns with who your customers are is extremely important. And whatever sort of activations you do to connect with those customers has to be aligned with the brand and everything that your customers are looking for. So that makes a lot of sense there. Now, so whole thing with Ether Engage, we're talking about the future. So where do you see the vision of things in the future and the way things are going with marketing and brand experiences as we start to integrate new technologies like AI? Maybe let's start with that, go down the rabbit hole a bit of an AI and how that's going to evolve things and how marketers can use AI to be ahead of the curve. And we'll start there and then we'll evolve from there.
I think I have this fundamental belief, and that's how everything's working. Like, let's talk starting with AI. Like, there's a level of human creativity that will always be required. Like, that's not going away. So, humans still need to be there to, and if you're talking in specific to brands and marketing, to come up with, truly big ideas, true creativity, true business ideas. I think that's required. But some of the things will get automated. They will get to where AI start to play a bigger role. Like, do you need humans to create banner ads in the future? No, you don't. You don't need that. Do you need copywriters to write social media headlines? I don't think so. So from my perspective, it's not. I think it's the back in the day what we just called, above the line of the brand advertising. I think that's where humans will still have human creators or human creativity will still have a piece. But as you move down the funnel or the journey of selling stuff, I think a lot of it is going to get automated. I also see a lot more importance of human powered things, like events. Like you can't replace going to a good restaurant or going to a good experience that's crafted, curated by a human. I think there's a lot more importance to that. So a lot of advertising, in my opinion, will get automated. You will need less people who will be doing a lot more stuff. So that's sort of my high level point of view, and it's already heading that way. If you just, I think I was reading a report around 4 million Meta's customers who are advertisers are using their suite to create ads. And they just launched their AI suite like 6 months ago. So it's already heading that way. So that's going to go there. To survive in that space, you still need to have a business that's working with AI. Because AI is disrupting the business models as well. If I look at agencies, a lot of their business models are being upended. They were in the business of selling hours and bodies and time. And now all of that work can be done by a lot of AI tools. So some businesses, and they give you the agency example, need to rethink how they do business, and then also then take AI, how do they operationally apply it to internally. That goes for marketers as well. Like, how are you using AI in your workflows to create personalized experiences, whether it's a web page, whether it's the ads that are targeted them, and then using human creativity to really create what I would call really signature experiences. Uh, that's how I'm thinking about the future of AI and brands and advertising.
Exactly. Yeah, you nailed it on the head. It's AI is going to come in real quick, but it's not going to replace humans. At least the key points of what humans offer. Creativity is that, and that brands are going to need to have that huge big picture idea behind whatever they're doing, and then integrate systems for the AI to execute on it for them. And I think when we had our first met and had our first conversation, I really liked how you positioned it as AI is a tool, and it doesn't matter, like, you have to have the experience and knowledge to use it properly. You can't just go, hey, make me $1 million to AI. You got to go, okay, can you execute this, and this, so I can make $1 million? What, based on like what you've heard from other people, and like why do you stand by that so strongly?
So that point of view, like that I have, like AI is a tool. I think I still stand by it. I think you, and that comment I made was 6 months ago, and just the AI space has evolved since then. I think even the how we say what a tool is, like right now we're giving it tasks. We're like, go do this and go do that, and that's great. We are going to get to a place where you don't have to give it a lot of direction. It's learning itself. You're teaching it how to learn through AI as well. And so it's going to go beyond just the tools. Our example that I gave, I was listening to the Uber CEO, and he talked about that in 15, 20 years, he is seeing the future as just a lot of autonomous cars. So AI is replacing the regular driver of the car, and you have autonomous Ubers on the streets, right? So that is now moving beyond. Is it doing a job? Is it a tool that's helping us get from point A to point B? Yeah. So it's more than the chat GPT of today, where I'm like, give me insights about Gen Z or give me ideas. It's moving into like, no, I know I have so many data sources now, I can do these jobs, and we don't need to do these jobs. So yes, I stand behind it point of view, but I'm like, as AI is evolving, the role of AI is also going to evolve. And so I think we just need to be open, and we need to be optimistic about certain things, but we also need to be, I mean, we in marketing, we serve capitalism, and so we help create economic value. and not everyone gets to be the benefiting stakeholders of that value. So what I'm trying to say is, like, let's see, the role is evolving of AI. Starting off as a tool, but it's going to evolve. We just need to be open and ready and see how it impacts business models and how it impacts marketing and adapt accordingly.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I mean, as I mentioned with you before, that's what really made me enjoy the talk that you put on previously. Was, yeah, you had this, you got it. You were like AI, like the rest of the panel, different people had different ideas, but you were really hyper focused on like, hey, this is like a tool you got to use, and figure out how to manage it. And that's how people can evolve from there, and marketers can really evolve from it. Okay, I'm going to do one last question and then we'll wrap things up. But I want to hear your like big picture sci-fi futuristic idea of what sort of like you mentioned, like automation's a big thing, but like where are we going to head, and how are marketers going to have, what type of tools or what type of experiences are they going to be able to create in the future? So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that.
I think I'll take it back to just customers and consumers, and this applies across all categories. Whether you're B2C, B2B, selling a credit card, you're selling a SaaS subscription, at the end of the day, people want what's relevant to them. Simple as that. Do you know my needs? Do you know me? And are you giving me something that fulfills that need? So in my sci-fi future, it is technology that is, again, I'm keeping the transparency and data and privacy conversation aside, but I'm just saying, like, the future that I imagine, and these are just will be sorted out accordingly, is a personalized experience. Like, I walk into a space, the space knows me. I walk into a store, I'm going to buy something, they know me, they know it once. Options are presented to me. I'm like, no, I don't like this, I don't like that. It knows my behaviors, it knows my credit cards. It's like, sort of my agent talking to some other agents. So it's, again, going back to some of my hypothesis that people are lazy and we want things to get done for us. And so this future with AI is done for us. My autonomous Uber knows that every day at X time, I usually order an Uber, so it just shows up, and I don't even need to do anything. My agent told the Uber agent that, you know what I'm saying? So it's fully autonomous, fully personalized experience. Is that going to happen? I think it's going to take a while, because I think even now I'm looking at the rear view mirror to kind of trying to project in the future, and I think the creatives, the true creatives in the industry, have to explore the possibilities of what they call that. But at a minimum, I'm like, don't make me work. Do the thing for me, entertain me, excite me, and solve my problem. That's my version of the future.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I mean, who wouldn't like to just walk out the door and there's a car there ready to drive you without even asking? It just like knows you. Um, so yeah, that's great. And then hopefully it doesn't get too powerful and make us all broke because it just spends all our money for us. But yeah, before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I think the only thing I would add is that, like, there's fundamentals of marketing that don't change. Like strong brand, understanding your consumer, fixing those problems, and you are in the game of business. You're here to make money. Those are not going to change. So study those and just grab onto those. And there's things that are changing, new behaviors, new technology, AI. Study those and consistently trying to find the intersection and create stuff at the intersections. So that's really my parting thoughts.
Awesome. Thanks again, Umar. This was great. And thank you everyone else for tuning in. We have another one happening on March 27th. Details will be shared on social media and everything from there. I just wanted to say I'm excited to see what the NewBrains is going to be working on and the work that's going to be happening over the next couple of years. And if anybody's interested, it's thenewbrains.com. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Justin.
Have a good one.